Hello, podcast listeners, or I should say, ho, 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 podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ. My goal is to meet every single person on the planet, and the easiest way to do that is by bringing them together to watch Christmas movies. This podcast is all about a full calendar month worth of holiday movies, why I think you should watch them, and my scientific curation for putting this thing together. So sit back, relax, and get in the festive holiday spirit. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I love movies. It's one of my all-time favorite things to do. I love going to a movie theater, and I love when the lights kind of go down and you get taken to another world. And the holiday season seems to be one of the boons for movies. I've always thought if you are a musician and you want to make an easy buck, you just release a Christmas album. Boom, you're done. And I think Hollywood likes the same idea, right? Oh, it's time, we need some extra money this year. Let's just release a new version of A Christmas Carol, or let's do our bend on something where someone is, miserly and they decide that they've experienced the feeling of Christmas. And it's always about someone who does not like Christmas coming to the realization that they love Christmas,
right?
Which is a weird take. So what I did was I put together what I consider to be the ultimate 2020 Christmas movie month calendar. So I've taken titles and I've broken them into 3 categories. Category 1 is pre-Christmas. These are movies where the bulk of the plot takes place before Christmas. And it's got some things to remind you about the reason for the season. It's got a lot of comedies fall into this category. And then, of course, you've got an example of this would be Love Actually. The bulk of Love Actually takes place prior to Christmas, and only a little bit of the movie actually takes place on Christmas. The next category, close to Christmas, these are the things where it actually takes place and Christmas is a big part of it. So, for example, in this, you would find the Muppet Christmas Carol is a good example, because the story of A Christmas Carol takes place Christmas Eve, and several Christmas Eves, and then Christmas Day.
It is the best telling of the Christmas Carol story of all time,
bar none. Thank you, sir, because it really is perfect. Paul Williams. Well, we'll get to the Muppet Christmas Carol in a minute. And then my other one is the out there titles, the movies that are about Christmas that you may have forgotten are about Christmas and are weird. An example of that would be Batman Returns.
Ooh, yeah, right. So JJ, I have a quick question, because I have to say I'm looking at your list, because there's a version of this you have online that people can check out. So I'm just briefly glancing over it. I think this list that you've made is amazing. I cannot wait to digest all of this with you, because this list and I
hope you're ready to argue some too about this.
But JJ, I'm just saying, I'm trying to communicate to you that I'm actually in awe of what you've done here, because I think this is a phenomenal list. I think you broke things down really well. And I've always wanted to know, what kind of movies should I watch on the come down from Christmas? So between Christmas and New Year's Eve, not leading up to New Year's Eve, but on sort of the come down from Christmas, maybe just the next couple days after it, because I've never known what to do with my time for on December 26th and 27th. I kind of feel lost on those days, right?
Sure. Christmas decorations are still up. You're still kind of in a Christmassy mood, but it's not you're sort of like, well, I don't really need to like get into the excitement of Santa coming anytime soon.
Most of your food is leftovers. And it's like you just don't know kind of what else is there to do except look forward to the end of the year.
So those fall into the category of some of the out there Christmas movies. For example, there is a movie called The Long Kiss Goodnight. It stars Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson, and the beginning takes place at like a Christmas parade, and Gina Davis is like a government super killer assassin, but she has amnesia. And so during this, she gets into a car accident and everything starts kind of coming back to her bit by bit. But now she's established this life 8 years later in this small town. So that is a good example of something you can watch in between because it's got the kind of Christmassy feel, but then it's wintry. I think what we transition into this wintry type movies. Another example would be the movie The Edge with Alec Baldwin and the guy from Oz, I can't remember his name, and then Sir Anthony Hopkins, where they end up crash landing in the Canadian or Alaska wilderness, and they have to fight a bear. And so that's good because it's wintry. It's got this wintry vibe rather than necessarily a Christmas vibe. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Is Snow Day on this list?
It's not on this list in particular because Snow Day is kind of ambiguous. You kind of feel like it's got to happen before Christmas because there's no snow at the beginning of the movie. There's no snow, and then they get a snow day. But it's hard to believe that this is December necessarily. So maybe they had a green, gray, brown Christmas. They move on to it. Also, side note, I should also mention this is a little piece of trivia I found out recently. The number one day for plumbers is the day after Thanksgiving. Did you know that? They call it Brown Friday.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep, it certainly does. Okay, so I want to start going through this thing. I actually printed out calendars so I could lay this out. And before I get too far into it, I love art. Not only do I love movies, but I love arguing about movies as well. This list incorporates a couple of television specials, but it doesn't have a lot of them. Now, I think that's the thing where people are going to argue the most because things like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, A Year Without Santa Claus, I love and are great movies. I plan on watching them this holiday season, but they don't fall into my Christmas movie category.
Because they weren't theatrical releases.
Correct. Okay. But that being said, I'm a hypocrite because there are some television specials that find their way onto this list. So I just want to go off.
So basically what you're saying is those TV specials are so good and so necessary that they're going to break through the sort of guidelines you have for the rest of the films.
Right. And I also think that there's some of those specials too that really should be on their own list. Like you should reserve every Sunday, let's say, during the holiday season, and you can watch those television specials. Because I love the stop motion ones, even things that are cruddy. Well, here's a great movie for you to watch between Christmas and New Year's.
Okay,
Rudolph's Shiny New Year.
Okay,
it's a stop motion animation feature from Rankin and Bass about Rudolph helping the new baby New Year get back to New Year Island in time for the new year, but he's got big ears and people laugh at him. There's a Benjamin Franklin character in this. There's a prehistoric pterodactyl, a caveman, a knight in shining armor. It is so amazing and so over the top, but it's a New Year's movie. Why not enjoy that?
I did not know that they had made this follow-up to the classic Rudolph, Rankin and Bass.
There's that one. There's another one too. There's it's Rudolph and Frosty's like sunny holiday or something where they go south and Frosty turns out to have a whole family. There's a snow woman and snow children.
Is the Rudolph Rankin and Bass original, is that like in the Library of Congress or anything like that? Because it should be. It's like,
I believe
it's one of the most, I think, culturally important pieces of media about Christmas I think ever made.
So those movies were animated in Japan, and
really
Yeah, and those the figurines were made in America, shipped over there. They were animated, sent back here. They added the dialogue, and the secretary at Rankin and Bass was just one day handed a box full of these figurines. And they're like, "Well, we don't need these anymore, so we don't want to store them. They're yours." And so she brought them home, and her kids used them as like play toys for years.
Oh my God.
And recently a Santa and part of a Rudolph went on eBay for like $150,000.
Oh my goodness.
It's really a shame because so many of those things were not cataloged at the time. I mean, the Rudolph stop motion became an instant hit and they played it every year, but they just never thought they would need these things again. Not only that, but they're not meant to last forever. A lot of these plasticine figures are meant to last a little bit of time. And so the amount of things that ended up in sandboxes. I mean, Brian Henson tells the same story of like Jim Henson, right? Like he'd come home and he'd be done. They built this new thing for Fraggle Rock and he did anymore and he gave it to the kids. And then the kids, would poke the eyes out. And, I mean, they treat them like kids treat toys. And so
there's part of me that cringes. There's part of me that cringes at that because of like the historical preservation you want to have. But at the same time, I love the fact that they were played with and loved by kids, know, and that there's something about an action figure that doesn't get taken out of its package that makes me a little sad, even though I understand it completely. I totally understand it. But there's something about that makes me just a little bit sad. So anyways,
I mean, that's exactly the plot of Toy Story 2, right?
Right, exactly.
It's you could live forever, but do you want to do that behind glass and not be played with by a child?
Right.
So
okay, let's not hold up your list anymore.
Yes, here we go. Okay, so I know that we're past Thanksgiving already, but I'm just going to say the Thanksgiving movie I play to ramp up for Christmas is Miracle on 34th Street. I know this is a little sacrilegious to the film buffs out there, but I like the 1994 version. That's my favorite with Richard Attenborough and Mara Wilson. It's a great holiday movie, and it starts on Thanksgiving. The first scene of that movie is Santa Claus being mad that the Santa that's going to be in the Thanksgiving Day parade is drunk, and then you see part of his butt. And it is just a great kickoff to Christmas. And really, only about 5 minutes of this movie actually takes place on Christmas, which I think is sort of amazing considering how iconic it's become as far as a Christmas movie. So then you move on to Black Friday. Black Friday, it's all about shopping. Shopping this year looks a little bit different. So why not invoke a movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger? But it's Jingle All the Way. Jingle All the Way is a movie that's based on the Tickle Me Elmo and Cabbage Patch toy craze, where people were literally ripping toys out of children's hands so that they could have the holiday gift of the year. Jingle All the Way is one of the first movies where I got to be excited because it's filmed in Minneapolis and there's sequences that take place at the Mall of America. And I was like, I've been there. That's the Mall of America. I've been there. I think that it's also something that people who work in retail enjoy a little bit because it's about a dad who forgets to pick up the toy of the season, and he goes out on Christmas Eve and he's going to get it. Also, a phenomenal role for the next door neighbor with Phil Hartman. Oh my God, the perfect single father. He just does everything right. It's great. And then young Jake Lloyd is in this, and he is, well, his screen time is the worst part of the whole movie.
Is this before Star Wars?
I believe it was.
Oh yeah, 96.
I believe this is like right leading up to it.
Yeah, you're right. 96. Wow. Okay.
Okay. Then on Saturday, a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, I have double features just to kind of blow through more of this list. On the 28th of November, I say A Bad Mom's Christmas and Just Friends. A Bad Mom's Christmas is kind of this throwaway comedy. It's a sequel to another movie called Bad Moms. And it's interesting in the fact that it's about their moms coming up. And if you really want a good double feature, Daddy's Home 2, you get double the daddies, double the moms. Those things are just put together. But I would actually recommend you kind of cleanse your palate from A Bad Mom's Christmas a little bit by going with Just Friends. Ryan Reynolds stars in this movie. And it's almost like I know so many of my friends who have this story of the girl that they pined for in high school. Well, after they graduated from high school, they went away, they went to college, they made something themselves, and then they found themselves back home for Christmas one year, and they found themselves face to face with that girl who never left town. And what are they going to do?
Can I admit something to you, JJ?
Oh, please do.
So ever since that movie came out, I've never seen it, but I've seen the trailer a couple of times. I have literally been referring to it in my head as the JJ movie. Because at that time, I thought I could totally see JJ's life taking this path, right? This is back 2005. So at that point, nothing had really happened to us yet, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that Ryan Reynolds is in the fat suit in like the beginning of the movie, in the trailer, I just feel like I could see you playing that role in the movie as well. And I don't mean this as an insult to you in any way, shape, or form. And just the whole concept of what the character's going through. And it made me think of you for some reason. So I've always called Just Friends the JJ movie in my head.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm honored that you would think of it as the JJ movie. Because to be honest, I felt like, holy crap, is someone writing down my life story right now?
There are moments in it where it's kind of like that. Yeah, just a little bit.
No. And it's quality use of a fat suit too, by the way. Really good use. Anna Faris is funny in this. Julie Haggerty from Airplane plays his mom. This movie, just start to finish, is a lot of fun. And it's hard to forget that it's a Christmas movie when you watch it. But 10 minutes later, you'll be like, oh yeah, I guess it is a Christmas movie. I guess there were lights. I guess he was going somewhere for Christmas. Huh. Let's move on to the next day. The Santa Claus 2, and then don't watch the Santa Claus 3. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Right.
The first Santa Claus movie is one of my favorite Christmas movies. And it might be my age in particular, because when I first saw this, I was young enough I knew that, I knew the secret about Santa at that point. Right. Just in case we have young listeners, I'll leave it at that. But I think it's funny. It's got a great depiction of the North Pole. I love the fact that all of the elves are played by kids, but they're adults.
Right.
It's a funny movie. The second one gets more cartoony. This is where they get like animatronic and puppeted. Right? Yeah, he's got to get a wife. He's got to get married. He's got to have the Mrs. Claus. In the second movie, you also get, it just gets to be more cartoony, but there are some great things. The reason I really love the second movie is for 5 seconds. It's at one point, Tim Allen goes to this woman who's the principal of the school his son attends, his son's a bad kid, and he's trying to woo the principal. And it's a bad Christmas party. It's dull and it's boring. And so he uses his Santa magic to get all these toys. And one of the toys he pulls out from under the tree, he goes, hey, I think this is a train set. I think this is what you wanted, isn't it, JJ? And this character whose name is JJ goes, what? And he goes, Merry Christmas, JJ. And I think, Merry Christmas, Tim Allen, every single year. It's like he's talking directly to me. So I'll watch it just for that moment.
The first Santa Claus movie makes me wistful. Makes me very wistful. I love that movie too. I'm with you on it. So 1994, I was in the 4th grade, and I remember specifically that was the age where I was grappling with the secret of Santa, and I desperately wanted it to be a different answer than the answer I was grappling with, and I remember thinking the Elf Squad was so cool, right? That there were elves that would have jetpacks that could go on secret missions for Santa, including breaking him out of jail with tinsel.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a cool addition. And as a kid, even just as a little kid, I was always really obsessed with the mythology of Santa Claus and like the different stories and stuff. I, just loved Christmas. And so I loved that this movie was sort of like almost turning it into like a superhero story in some way. So I think about that all the time with this movie.
It's funny you talk about the mythos of Santa Claus, because my next movie is one where I love the story they've created, which is Ernest Saves Christmas. Now, Now, of course, this movie is about Jim Varney's character, Ernest. Gone too soon, Jim Varney. My God, that guy is so funny. And like the voice of Slinky Dog, the Ernest characters, I will always love Jim Varney. And I think he shines here in Ernest Saves Christmas because he's a genuine guy who loves Christmas. He loves the holiday. It's set in Florida, which is a little off-putting because I'm kind of like Kevin McAllister, where I'm like, well, you got to have Christmas trees and you got to have snow. And, that's what Christmas looks like to me, even though I know millions of people across the globe have a different view of it. But in this, they establish the kind of what do I want to say here? The birth and rebirth of Santa Claus is a person is selected to be Santa. And then when he starts to lose his magic, it's his job to find his apprentice, the next Santa Claus. And in Ernest Saves Christmas, we first meet Kris Kringle, Santa Claus, who has amazing fingerprints, by the way, when they finally fingerprint him.
He has amazing fingerprints.
Yeah, it's a great part of the movie. Trust me, you're going to love it. He's got great fingerprints. And he's got to find a new Santa, and he's chosen a Mr. Rogers-esque television personality who loves kids. And of course, now we're in the 1980s, and people are like, you're Kris Kringle, okay, whatever. And he teams up with Ernest, who Ernest immediately believes that this is Santa Claus. He absolutely knows that he has met the real Santa Claus, and now he's helping on this mission. This also has one of the best sleigh sequences in all of the Christmas movies I'm going to talk about today. It's action-packed. It's tons of fun watching the sleigh go all over the globe. And, Ernest, of course, thinks that he can drive the sleigh, but he can't. They've got elves that are amazing. There's even a great stinger at the very end that leads into Easter, which I enjoy. Ernest Saves Christmas is easily one of the best Christmas movies that people forget about on a regular basis. And I think it's just because nobody knows what to do with this movie. They know it's a Christmas movie. They know it's a comedy, but is it for kids? Is it for older kids? Is it for adults? I don't know. But I think that anybody can get some good laughs out of Ernest Saves Christmas. It's also my idea for a sequel to the movie Elf, which is Buddy has to go across the globe to find a new Santa Claus.
Does he become Santa at the end?
He certainly does. He goes and he finds out that it was him the whole time. See, it writes itself, doesn't it?
Right.
Someone get Will Ferrell on the line. Then to kick off December. So this only takes us to December 1st, if you can believe this. I mean, one day after this podcast has been released. So you've got some catching up to do.
JJ's done the work for us, though, folks. So strap in.
Yeah, it's there. I say kick it off with Christmas Vacation. Kick off the month of December with Christmas Vacation. It's all there in this movie. Putting up the lights, getting the tree, family coming, shopping, getting your bonus from work. All of these things, even though it's supposed to only take place over the span of a week, everything about the holiday season is touched on in Christmas Vacation. This is a perfect comedy. It is very rare. It does happen. This movie, start to finish, is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and it continues to be funny, even though it was from 1989. It's 31 years old this year. This movie, to me, is just as fresh as it was the day it came out in theaters. In fact, the tagline for this film is Yule, Y-U-L-E, you'll crack up. I think that there's something about that's funny. In fact, the day we're recording this, I actually am taking part this evening in a virtual Q&A with Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase, where they're going to talk about making a Christmas Vacation and some deleted scenes and some things that went differently than they thought. And I'm pretty excited about it.
You're participating?
Yeah, it's a live Q&A, and they sold tickets for people to zoom in, and there's only so many out there.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm very, very excited about that. I did not drop the $125 though to have a 1-minute private Zoom conversation with the two of them.
Dang.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, you're not going to be now. Here's a tidbit, a little interesting for you. Aunt Bethany, the old kooky aunt who's in this,
yep,
was the voice of Betty Boop.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So there's a little something for you.
I have an aunt who's obsessed with Betty Boop. I'm going to have to talk to her about that.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely should. And you can hear, like, when you hear it now, like when you listen to her, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can hear Betty Boop in there. Moving on, Last Christmas. This is a more recent film. This came out in 2019. It stars Emilia Clarke, who is the Queen of Dragons on that show, The Dragon Show, that everyone loves, Game of Thrones. And this movie was the sleeper hit of 2019. I knew people who saw this movie 3 or 4 times in the theaters.
Yeah,
and
I heard about that
it's
too.
She's a screw up. She works in a Christmas store, like a Christmas themed store, so it's Christmas year round for her. So the blush is off the rose. She doesn't really care about the holiday. She meets a guy. Bada bing, bada boom. It's a rom-com. Hope you're going to enjoy it. There you go. That's all I can say about that one. Moving on to the next one, Office Christmas Party. Did you see this movie by any chance, Tucker?
I did not. It does not have Spider-Man in it.
It does not. It does not have Spider-Man, but it does have Jason Bateman. It does have Jennifer Aniston, and it's got a scene-stealing role with Kate McKinnon as the office manager. This is a Chicago like tech firm, and they are on the brink of being closed. And Jason Bateman, just is amazing in this as the guy he's going to save the day, but he also has feelings for a coworker. What's going to happen? There are some really funny things in here. There's some over the top. It is in the same vein of like the Melissa McCarthy comedies and, We're the Millers and things that are so over the top. There's things that take place where if this was a real Office Christmas Party, like someone would have died, falling from like 2 stories high. So you got to get past that to just enjoy this one. There's some really funny stuff in here. Definitely not for the kiddos. Not for the kiddos. Every time I see a Christmas movie and it's got an R rating next to it, I always think like, oh, you little devil, are you going to get coal in your stocking this year? Moving right along, we've got Elf. Elf, a certified Christmas classic. From the first time I saw it, I knew that this movie was going to be amazing. And I think it's the one that Will Ferrell, more people come up to him and quote. Jon Favreau, who helped write and direct this thing, is very proud of it. James Caan is great in it. I think it really helped Zooey Deschanel's career take off. This is just a fun movie. And then having Ed Asner as Santa, I think, is a great choice as well.
I'm with you on all of that. I just wanted to bring up, too, that I recently read an interview with James Caan saying that the reason they didn't make more of these movies was that apparently Farrell and Favreau didn't get along or something. I had never heard about it.
I had heard that too.
I want to know what the nature of their disagreement was, because the movie came out great, and it certainly was a huge, and they both had good careers already, but it was a huge injection for both their careers at that time. So I just wanted to, I don't get it. I wonder what they didn't agree on.
I think that they're too polite of gentlemen to actually throw down and say why they disliked the other one. And it's amazing because they've both gone on to have just gigantic careers. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, it's not like one of them was a real jerk and ended up only doing B movie stuff afterwards. So you definitely side with one. So I don't know. And we'll right. Probably never actually know what happened between these guys, but it was probably something epic. And maybe when one of them dies, the other one will be allowed to share the story. On Saturday, it's a double feature of movies to remind you that you make a difference. And it's important that you're here on the planet. It's a Wonderful Life and Mixed Nuts. It's a Wonderful Life, I think, is the Christmas movie that is featured in more Christmas movies than any other movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's always playing in the background. And
is it in the public domain?
I don't know. I kind of think that it is because I've seen a lot of people adapt it into musicals, and certainly they've adapted that idea of the story of an angel, telling a guy why he's important and why he should be, remain on Earth. And this is what your life would look like if you weren't there. And the Muppets have done it. Married with Children did it. Everyone kind of gets in on the It's a Wonderful Life storyline. But I know in Gremlins,
I can see it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say in Gremlins, it's playing on the TV. In National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's playing on the TV. It's just always seems to be featured in other Christmas movies.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that outside of this list, if you ever wanted to book just a Christmas double feature, like the perfect Christmas double feature for a day, I think would be It's a Wonderful Life and then The Muppet Christmas Carol, because it's a Scrooge tale is what it is.
Yeah. And also, if you have time after you watch It's a Wonderful Life on YouTube, you can watch the SNL Lost ending to It's a Wonderful Life, where Dana Carvey plays George and Phil Hartman plays the uncle. And he goes, I remember what I did with the money. And oh my God, John Lovitz plays the crotchety old man, and Dana Carvey's impression is perfect. His George Bailey is perfect. And they kick like the living crud out of him. And just like, it's so funny. It's such a wonderful, wonderful piece that's something fun. And then Mixed Nuts. The reason I put these two together is Mixed Nuts is a fun movie where Steve Martin runs a call center for people who are feeling suicidal. And it all takes place like in California. They must be like on the Santa Monica Beach area. And it's about the people who volunteer at this call line. And it takes place on Christmas. And there's a pregnant woman who is, looks like the Virgin Mary. This movie is funny. It's got Madeline Kahn. It's one of Adam Sandler's first movie roles as well. Rita Wilson is in it. And if you didn't get enough of her during Jingle All the Way, you can enjoy her here. It's a really fun movie that is a Christmas movie, and I think that in recent years they've tried to really push this movie a little bit more, but you don't get it. Also, Liev Schreiber steals every scene that he's in this, and it's so damn good, and it's so funny. I highly recommend, if you've never seen Mixed Nuts, to add this one to your holiday. On Sunday, the 6th of December, Gremlins. Gremlins is the scariest movie I've ever seen. When I was a kid, this is what kept me up at night. Oh my God, Gremlins scare me. But it's a Christmas movie, and it tells you right at the very beginning it's a Christmas movie by the soundtrack. Jerry Goldsmith, who did the score to this, is amazing. Joe Dante, who directed it, really knows how to like master chaos. He directed it almost like you'd direct a cartoon. Steven Spielberg, one of the producers, Chris Columbus, who would go on to make Home Alone and then some of the Harry Potter movies, is the guy who wrote this movie. It's an amazing, amazing movie in my opinion, and it's definitely a dark comedy, and let's face it, Baby Yoda and Furby owe a lot to Gizmo at this point. Sure. I think
Grogu owes a lot to Gizmo for sure.
I think that this is also my favorite audio commentary of all time. If you have access to the DVD for this, if you can listen to the cast commentary, it's worth your time. For example, did you know that Howie Mandel? What was that?
I was going to say, you've said that a number of times now, I believe, on the podcast. And so what is it about this particular commentary that is so great?
I think one of the things I like the most is Joe Dante is such a lover of movies that he talks about, oh, this is my homage to this is my homage to this. He puts Chuck Jones, who did all the Looney Tunes animations that we love so much, and like how the Grinch, the original Grinch cartoon, they have a cameo for him in this thing. He does a great job creating that small town Americana and then setting it on its head by having little tiny green demons go all over the place. He like the Peltzer Peeler Juicer, which is a juice machine that the dad invents, is still in Joe Dante's garage to this day. And these are the little things you find out while you're listening to the audio commentary, what it was like to audition for Steven Spielberg. It is so good. And then Howie Mandel was the voice of Gizmo. And so he even has an amusing story about how he talks about, like, it was my first voiceover role and I really didn't know anything. And so I just signed the contract they gave me, which included him dubbing his voice into all of these different languages. And so normally you get paid to do all that, but this he just signed a comp. So he said I recorded it. I'd say bright light, and they'd be like, all right, now in German, and he brichlichen, and he goes, I'm much smarter now than I was back then. I think it also gives you a lot of appreciation for how they built all of the elements of this. Like to me, the Gremlins look so lifelike. They, and even Gizmo, and they talk about how there's 4 different Gizmos. One was a giant head with all these gears and servos, and then they had the little tiny one that fit in the backpack. And it's interesting, and they're people who love cinema and then went on to do other things. And the commentary is it's perfect in my opinion. So watch it twice that day. Moving along, Trapped in Paradise is a movie that is very easily forgotten, that stars Dana Carvey, John Lovitz, and Nicolas Cage, as well as Madchen Emick. It's about 3 guys who rob a small town bank and then get stuck in this town. There's a snowstorm, and then they try and use a boat, and that doesn't work, and they get stuck here, all while being treated like the second sons of this town by the victims of their crime. So if you can imagine robbing a bank and then being taken in by the guy who owns the bank and like having a meal, and they give you some clothes and Christmas presents. This movie is so funny. It is so funny, and it's just kind of bizarre. And I think the reason it never took off is because John Lovitz and Dana Carvey never really hit that next level of fame,
which is too bad,
to make this a Christmas classic.
Yeah.
Up next on Hulu, you got only see this on Hulu because that's the only place I know it exists. A Very Brady Christmas. This is one of those television specials I told you I would include. And in this movie, the Brady Bunch all get together, and they're all adults now, so they have their own kids. They all get back to the same house. Sam is cheating. Sam the butcher has left Alice, and so she comes back to live with the Bradys over the holidays. It's so campy, and it's done exactly like the friggin' television show was, that it's a love letter to that era of sitcom in the most cheesy 90s way possible.
Was this the first Brady reunion?
I mean, technically they had like the variety show that they had done, but this is definitely the first, like, the show's been off the air now for 10 years.
Okay.
We're going to do something with the characters.
Gotcha. Yeah, because these hairdos I'm looking at are fantastic.
Right? And it's got it's got building codes play a huge part of the plot of this. So if you're an engineer, this is right up your butt. By the end of it, you're going to be like, Jesus Christ, this thing is 65 minutes long, and they've talked about building codes for 40.
Yeah, I feel like if you like municipal code talk and also the excess of the late 80s, check out Very Brady Christmas from 1988.
You're in for it. Wednesday, December 9th, Love Actually. Richard Curtis and his love letter to the holidays. I love stories that are about a bunch of different like characters and stories all coming together. It kind of feels like when you're watching an origin story, or like the Avengers. This is the Christmas version of the Avengers.
Gotcha.
Right? That's the best way I can do it. It's the ultimate rom-com. I remember seeing this movie on a date. And now whenever I see it, I'm always reminded of like, oh yeah, that one didn't work out. But it's a good movie. It's a great movie. And Bill Nighy is the old aging rocker. That's one of my favorite storylines. On Thursday the 10th, another double feature, 8 Crazy Nights, the Adam Sandler animated Hanukkah movie, as well as A Christmas Story. One of them is a classic Christmas tale. The other one is a fart joke for 85 minutes. Mm-hmm. 8 Crazy Nights has a place because there are some fun characters here. There are some songs that are much better than they need to be. And it's perfect for that like junior high age kid in your house. Mm-hmm. Like this is the first movie where I heard the word poopsicle. So you can enjoy that.
Making me laugh. Just hearing you say it right now made me laugh.
Right, poopsicle. And then the character. Have you ever seen this movie, Tucker, by any chance?
I think I did. It's just been so long now that I can't really remember. But I think I did see this.
I remember seeing this with our friend Dustin, and Dustin loved a character named Whitey, who is this short little guy who loves Christmas, but everyone treats him like garbage. And he's got kind of this high, squeaky voice. And Dustin could do the voice perfectly and would just quote it all the time. And so it's got a special little place in my heart. A Christmas Story, I don't need to explain to you why A Christmas Story is so important. I mean, they play it for 24 hours on TBS every single year. It's iconic.
So I remember watching this when I was a kid, and this movie giving me extreme anxiety to the point that I didn't like watching it for a while after the first time I saw it. Like the scene when he goes to talk to Santa in the mall. And that whole sequence to me was always just terrifying. And just the whole thing with the tongue sticking to the flagpole sequence and the beating up of the bully, like this movie had so much anxiety inducing scenes for me that even to this day I can watch it now, but I still feel all of that as I'm watching it.
You know, one thing that I couldn't relate to in this movie, and I'm sure that you couldn't either, is the relationship that Ralphie has with his father, where he feels like it's this guy that he can't really talk to, and is sort of this old curmudgeon.
Which is why our parents loved this movie. Like my parents,
exactly.
My parents. And the thing is that at least on my mom's side, you know, my mom had a loving relationship with my grandfather. My dad's dad was far more removed. But still, their generation are the ones that absolutely, because it's about their generation, right? This was their childhood.
Right, 100%. I mean, this is also comes from a time when we had this love affair with the 1950s. Mm-hmm. So like, think of like the movie Grease, Happy Days, things like that. There's something that we love so much about the 1950s and we think of so fondly that it's no surprise that this movie is like the perfect holiday interpretation of what that is.
What year does it take place officially?
I think, I mean, it's supposed to be in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken, like probably like mid 50s, early 50s.
I'm on it, sir. We're going to answer this question.
Okay. While you're working on that, I'm going to keep moving along. Friday, December 11th, Bad Santa. Bad Santa was another R-rated raunchy comedy that I think took a lot of people by surprise by how much they liked it. And it actually has a really sweet message to it. Billy Bob Thornton plays like one of the best drunks I have ever seen in my entire life. And unfortunately, I believe I know that this is the last movie for John Ritter. And there's a scene in it where he and Bernie Mac are speaking, and they've had to edit chunks of other conversations in to kind of balance it out. And so, I mean, that always makes me a little sad when I see it, because John Ritter was one of those guys too who had amazing comedic timing and just should have done so much more than he was able to do. But Bad Santa, another fun movie to watch. I mean, you know, crack open a bottle of wine, a couple of beers, because while you're watching this, it makes you want to drink, which is weird to say.
So no, I'm with you. I actually remember watching this, I think with maybe you and a group of people in the theater, and it just taking over, like it absolutely rocking everybody. As far as really quickly, dating the story of A Christmas Story. According to Wikipedia, director Bob Clark said in the commentary that he and the author Shepard wished for the film to be seen as amorphously late 30s, early 40s.
Really?
A specific year is never mentioned in the film. Numerous sources, though, including the New York Times and CBS News, have dated the film to 1940 or the early 1940s.
Oh my! I was way off on that.
That kind of blows my mind a little bit. So now I'm going to have to rewatch this again and go, man, this was even from before when my parents were born.
You know, I guess they don't have a television. They only have a radio. And so that is something I think that's a clear indicator of like the timing. You could probably also look for when the Little Orphan Annie radio program was on, because that plays a huge part in it. Yeah, I mean, that makes more sense. But to me, I guess, well, I mean, I wasn't alive at that time, and I guess they must have had way more electricity than I give them credit for.
They definitely did have electricity.
Right?
Yeah.
On Saturday, the 12th of December, The Last Holiday in the Ice Harvest. The Ice Harvest is a dark comedy directed by Harold Ramis. With scene stealing role from Oliver Platt is just amazing in it. In fact, the way he wields a turkey leg in this movie is nothing short of operatic. This is a movie that is about like a gangster accountant and lawyer. Randy Quaid has a fun role in this, kind of a whodunit. Billy Bob Thornton pops up again. It's fun to watch. It's got a lot of F-bombs and a couple of sexy time moments because the part of the movie takes place in a strip club. The Last Holiday is a Queen Latifah movie where she's diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor and given only like 4 weeks to live. So she quits her job and she's going to blow all of her money. And she finds herself at the same hotel that they filmed Casino Royale at. And she tries snowboarding and she does all this stuff. And then halfway through the movie, turns out she doesn't have a brain tumor. They read that x-ray wrong. And so the rest of the movie is them trying to get a hold of her to say like, you got to be careful. It's not like we said. It's an interesting movie. And I find it to be more entertaining than you would expect when you watch it. Like when you think of the Queen Latifah vehicle, but she is really funny. She's also did a movie with Eugene Levy and Steve Martin that I remember liking a lot at one point. And so Queen Latifah, she can make you laugh.
Martin. Okay. Interesting.
On Sunday the 13th, I give you 2 television specials, the Charlie Brown Christmas and Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the 1966 Chuck Jones version.
I think these are wholly forgivable inclusions here, JJ.
Right. I think so too. So the scandal of 2020, as if, we hadn't had a tough enough year, is Apple bought the rights to the Peanuts and they're actually making new Peanuts shorts, but they also now had control over the streaming and the broadcast rights for all of the Charlie Brown specials. And so they weren't going to have the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving or Charlie Brown Christmas available to be on ABC as they've been on for like the last 30 years.
Right.
And so they bowed to a little bit of pressure and they actually granted PBS the ability to stream these things. And so on Sunday the 13th at 7:30 Central Time, you can watch A Charlie Brown Christmas on PBS. You can also stream it for free right now on the Apple Plus app. But that's it. It's interesting. I didn't think Apple thought that they were going to be such a villain by simply curating this, but they certainly are. And also the amount of people who said, you can go to hell, Apple. I will not get your streaming service, and you and your iPhone 12 can sit on it, you jerks. Because people were pissed, man. Oh, they're mad. And even when they got what they wanted, they got it to be streamed, they still aren't happy enough because they're like, wait a minute. It's being broadcast on PBS, but it's not being simulcast on their app. That's bullshit.
I think there's a certain number that you have of cash just sitting in the bank when you go, I don't care what controversy this causes. And I think Apple's at that point, right? Because they're like trillions of dollars or something in the bank. I think they're just like, yeah, do whatever you want. I don't care.
That is a very Scrooge way of thinking, I think, Tucker.
I'm not saying it's correct, JJ. I'm saying I think that exists in the world.
Oh, yeah. So but don't you think that because they have so much money, they should be putting this out there?
I'm not making a value judgment of what they should or shouldn't do. I know if I was in their position, if I were to be the person who decided I have a chance to purchase a Charlie Brown Christmas, my intention would hopefully be to ensure that it is always available, like wherever people need to get it, right? I wouldn't want to put it behind like a paywall, I don't think. But who knows?
No. I think it's a great way to introduce people to your paywall, right? Like make them watch a 3-minute ad for all the stuff that you've got before they watch it.
Right. I mean, it's part of our cultural heritage, right? So like locking it away, doesn't seem right to me.
Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now there's 2 other versions of the Grinch you can get into, the live action with Jim Carrey and the CG illumination one. I mean, I think what's ironic about this is they missed the point of what this thing is about. You know,
Right.
like
This-
the Jim
this-
Carrey one, I think was it's got the bones of something there, but like the latest one I watched with Benedict Cumberbatch as the voice of the Grinch, I didn't care for at all.
Well, I think for one thing, Hollywood has not figured out yet how to use prosthetics to make a human look like a Seuss character without it feeling really weird.
Agreed.
It hasn't. They haven't cracked that nut yet. Second, I think the Dr. Seuss original animation is perfect.
Me too.
Perfect. Why? I mean, I get why. Cash grab. That's why they make a remake. It's a known thing, and you put Jim Carrey in it, you're going to make some money probably. But the original is so perfect, it should not be remade. It should just be replayed. Not remade, replayed.
One of the things that like in the Jim Carrey one is, to me, the Grinch isn't this cartoony like character, you know, like the way he kind of contorts his body and like that to me, like the Grinch is a slow, like, in fact, you can Google some really amazing art from, they were going to make a Grinch animated like feature film in the 90s where Jack Nicholson was going to voice the Grinch. And when you see some of the artwork that they put together for that, it was going to be nightmare fuel. It would have been, I think, really unique to see what this take on the Grinch would have been. But you know, we'll never see it. And in fact, I think the Grinch to me is one of those roles. Like, they're also right now, there's a Grinch musical that's playing in London on the West End, and they taped it so that they can play it on NBC or one of those stations.
Right.
And Matthew, I can't remember what his last name is. Matthew something or other. The teacher from Glee is the guy who's playing it, and I can already tell, like, I hate his take on the Grinch.
Now that I'm thinking about it, though, between say the Grinch Stole Christmas and any Scrooge tellings and It's a Wonderful Life, you know, these are all stories of redemption, right?
All of them are. That's the whole point of Christmas.
Right. And so, you know, is there redemption in A Charlie Brown Christmas?
So there's not redemption in Charlie Brown Christmas. There's understanding. So Charlie Brown goes around not understanding the meaning of Christmas.
Okay.
And to me, that is also part of what the Grinch goes through. That's part of his redemption, is he doesn't understand the meaning of Christmas. He thinks that Christmas is all about commercialism. It's about packages, boxes, and bags. You know, it came without presents. It came without tags. And when the Who's all get together on Christmas and still sing about how they are together, and that's the most important thing, that's when his redemption comes, as he realizes that Christmas isn't about that. Christmas means something more. And Charlie Brown realizes that too, when he finally realizes, like, it's not about the hustle and bustle of the season, and Charlie Brown just needs to, like, stop overthinking things. I mean, if he solved that in some way, if he got a little bit of therapy, none of those specials would be longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't trust the credentials of the therapist he normally sees. No, I'm talking about Lucy.
What was that?
Talking about Lucy.
Oh, talking about her psychiatric help for 5 cents.
Yeah.
She's not licensed, so I don't know why they haven't shut her down yet.
I know.
The week before Christmas, Batman Returns on Monday, which is a great Christmas movie.
I love the inclusion of this one.
You know what I think is so neat about this one is, like, so Batman Returns is really about family, right? It's about the Penguin trying to discover his family, and it's about Selina trying to find, you know, something beyond herself. And it's about a father and son in Christopher Walken and his son. And I can't look at a tree lighting ceremony without thinking of this movie. On the 15th, yes, it is a Christmas movie, Die Hard. I think that's just a great inclusion in there. And if you've spent years watching Die Hard on TV, you gotta get yourself like some Netflix going on, or Amazon Prime rental, or borrow it on DVD from a friend, because they drop in the perfect amount of F-bombs in that movie. Right. It's just perfect. And Alan Rickman's so damn good in it. Rest in peace.
something interesting is happening with your list here, and I'm wondering if you'll willingly dive into it, because we went from a couple of double feature days, more family friendly stuff for the most part, but then on the 13th you've got Charlie Brown and Dr. Seuss, but then the 14th and 15th you're really ramping up the action, right? Like action and fighting and combat is happening in the middle of December. Why is that suddenly happening?
Well, on the 16th, we have Scrooged, which is, I think, one of the darkest takes on the Christmas Carol storyline. And this is why. To me, this is where I hit my limit in like the Christmas season, right? I'm not on vacation yet. There's still a ton of work to be done. Last minute, like having to get a hold of presents. At this point, I've had to go to some Christmas parties and I'm just like, oh my God. And I find myself hitting this Christmas wall. And so by bringing in the action, bringing in the non-traditional Christmas movies and something that is meant to really skewer Christmas movies like Scrooged, I think I kind of get the reset. Like it's just where the palette finds me at that time. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yep. I think Scrooged would be the second best telling of that tale after A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Right. I agree.
I also remember the nipples scene making it really uncomfortable between my mom and I sitting on the couch watching that movie.
You can see her nipples. You know what is funny about Scrooged? So one of the things I love the most, I love how Bill Murray brings Brian Doyle Murray into all of his projects. Brian Doyle Murray is his older brother, and he plays his dad in the flashback sequence when he sees him when he's kid. Like here you go, Frankie Jr. And he goes, a choo-choo train? No, it's not a choo-choo. It's 10 pounds of veal. As a kid, I asked for veal one Christmas because of this movie.
Did you get it?
No. Both of my parents were like, no, we're not going to get you veal for Christmas. And I remember thinking, but the dad makes such a big deal about how great of a gift it is. And then Bill Murray goes is like a gift that's worth easily $150 in a modern market. I thought that was great. Carol Kane also is great in this, and she plays the ghost of Christmas Present. And the way she just beats up on Bill Murray, I think, is amazing. There's such great stuff. I just love it. I love it. And it's funny. This take on A Christmas Carol is so funny, and Bill Murray is so perfect in this role. This is actually something that I think that they should adapt into a stage show. I think Scrooged as a stage show would be amazing.
I had no idea this guy was his brother.
Brian Doyle Murray, you didn't know that?
No, I mean, I knew who this guy was. I couldn't tell you his name, but I'd seen him in a million things. I had no idea he was Bill Murray's brother. I knew about Joel Murray. I did not know about Brian Doyle.
He also he's in Caddyshack. He's like the head of the caddies in Caddyshack. Yeah, he's got some great roles in there.
He's got some great roles.
He's the mayor of the town in Groundhog Day. It must be fun to have your brother on set, and they both are avid golfers. So I think they both go golfing when they're on set together. On the 17th, this one can sometimes be a hard sell to people, but I've found that the more people I get to watch Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, the more they like it. Last year, I convinced my wife to go to a special screening of it that they were having at my local movie theater. And I spent $20 a piece on tickets. We were the only people in the theater, and they also showed a Fraggle Rock Christmas special. But Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is really unique in the fact that Jim Henson wanted to make it's a book that he adapted into a television special, and they built everything to scale. So there's no human beings in it. It's not like a regular Muppet movie where they share space. Everything is built to scale for these characters who live in a rural hollow. They use the river. They deliver laundry. It's got a gift of the Magi element to the storyline. It's got some really great music by Paul Williams. In fact, one of them is When the River Meets the Sea, which to me, I cry when I hear this song, it just brings tears to my eyes. And I've included it in 2 funerals I've helped plan over the years, actually, because it's the idea is that when the river meets the sea is when we shuffle off this mortal coil. And There's a question of like, what does a baby dream of? It's a great song, amazing song. They sang it at Jim Henson's funeral. That's probably why I got the idea to put it into a funeral myself. But this was a song.
Like a really heavy movie.
I'm sorry, say that again.
This sounds like a really heavy movie with puppets.
It sounds heavy, but it's not, because you've got characters who talk like this. It's the story of, so Emmett and his mother are very poor, and Pa Otter has passed away, but they still like to celebrate. They still want to celebrate Christmas, and they see that there's a singing contest. There's like a little talent show that's taking place on Christmas Eve. And if Emmett borrows his mother's wash tub and puts a hole in it to make a wash tub base, he and his friends could make a jug band and win. Well, on the same side, Ma Otter thinks if I take these tools that Emmett uses for odd jobs and pawn them, I could buy fabric to make a dress and I could sing and win at this competition. And then neither of them win.
Aw.
Yep. There's a really raucous like group of ne'er-do-wells in this. Some bad eggs who have a rock band, and they end up winning. But they, just because they don't win money doesn't mean that they don't find something special in it. And it's really, I mean, it's phenomenal. And then when you're done watching it, go to YouTube and watch the blooper reel from it, because it is top-notch stuff.
Is there like a follow-up, like a sequel where they then get evicted because they weren't able to get the money they needed?
No. There's no sequel. Well, I mean, at the end you'll see. This is one that's well worth your time, and I think you could probably watch the whole thing on YouTube. Again, songs by Paul Williams is just amazing. I mean, he writes almost all the Muppet stuff up until like the more recent reincarnation of the Muppets. This is one of my all-time favorites, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. And I remember when the only time you could see this was when it aired on TV. It wasn't on VHS. It wasn't on DVD. And so it was rare to see it back in the day. And this, they actually did. There's a playhouse in the Northeast, I think maybe in Vermont, that teamed up with Jim Henson Productions, who still owns the rights to this. And they made a stage show out of it that mixes live puppetry with people in costumes. Ooh, and cool. Paul Williams wrote some new songs. If you go on and watch some of the clips, it is, I mean, I wish I could have gone to see this. The Goodspeed Opera House, I think is what it's called. I wish someone would do it locally. Oh my God. I'd buy a ticket to every show. Friday the 18th, a week before Christmas, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Robert Downey Jr., Val Kilmer. It's a detective story. It is.
Was this the thing he did right before Iron Man, or was that
This is right. This is right before Iron Man. In fact, this is directed by Shane Black, who made Lethal Weapon and directed Iron Man 3.
That's right.
Shane Black loves Christmas. That's why Iron Man 3 was set at Christmas. This whodunit detective story is funny. I've never laughed at someone being peed on more than in this movie. It's just real good.
Yeah, that's high praise if it's got a good pee scene.
If it's got a good pee, who doesn't love a good pee scene?
That's why I watch Cool World.
On Saturday the 19th, Home Alone and Home Alone 2. Now, here's your homework, kiddos. Watch Home Alone, and then watch The Movies That Made Us on Netflix and the making of Home Alone, because it is amazing how this movie almost didn't happen. Like at one point, it was the production was shut down and the studio pulled the plug.
Really?
Oh my God. The story of Home Alone is amazing. It is. I mean, when you think about it now, it's like, oh my God, they almost gave away one of the most profitable franchises of all time out of nowhere. And in fact, spoiler alert here, Warner Brothers was making this movie and they said, we can make this movie for $14 million. And they said, no, you only have 13. And they're like, we need 14 to make it. And even in 1992, $14 million isn't a lot of money, right?
Uh-huh.
And so they said, nope, you can't do it. And so Warner Brothers pulled the plug and shut down production. And then 20th Century Fox pretty much like called and said, don't shut anything down. Keep making the movie. And then it goes on to make, $250 million
Right.
in the
And
early 90s.
I worship at the altar of Catherine O'Hare as well. And so anything that you get her in, I'm there. She is so brilliant in that movie. And the whole subplot with her and John Candy, and her trying to get back to Kevin, like that whole her sort of journey to get back to her son is, I think, just it's the heart of the movie, right? It's the heart and soul of it.
So I just watched this movie the other day myself. We did a Home Alone 2 double feature, and Jill commented on, she goes, it's very believable how this kid could have gotten left behind. They did such a good job crafting the story. John Hughes just amazing. But I believe I can see how that could happen about leaving him behind, right? Like it is very plausible. There are no plot holes that are big enough to put your fist through. It is a very believable story until he booby traps his house.
Yeah. And I was so obsessed with Home Alone as a kid. I had the novelization of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So I would read that a lot, but I was obsessed with the trap laying, with the sort of making like a battle plan to fight the bad guys. And I would even try to set up some of these traps like in my own house. And my parents would be like, Tucker, stop putting nails on the stairs. But I thought, well, we have to defend the house from burglars. I don't know what else we're supposed to do.
There's a whole generation of people who thought that's like, I'm surprised ADT hasn't leaned into this and been like, listen, well, we'll burglar proof your house, everybody.
This is a movie
that paint cans on your ceiling and everything.
This movie is also a movie that, just like The Matrix, makes no sense in a world that has cell phones.
Yep.
Because, handling this in this day and age would be super simple, right? Like he would have been in child protective custody within seconds, and everything would have been fine.
Right. You could have even checked your Netflix account and been like, oh, someone's watching Netflix at the house right now. Kevin is fine.
Right. Well, and it makes sense because they do such a good job of establishing him as the black sheep of this giant family who feels like he doesn't really have a place to belong. So like him not going through any efforts to reach out to mom and dad, in this case, he doesn't have any actual ability to do that, really. Right. In modern day world, you just grab the cell phone that your parents have and you'd call each of their number directly.
Yep. 100%. Well, and also the idea that the entire block, everybody on this block went on vacation. Not a single person stayed home. I mean, or even like this, you could check your Nest Cam and be like, oh, nope, Kevin ordered a pizza. Like he's fine. Like we'll get home as soon as we can.
My absolute favorite scene in the first movie, but in both movies, my favorite parts of those movies, even as a kid, was him befriending the sort of scary stranger.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's the next door neighbor, who that scene with them talking in the church is gorgeous. I love that scene so much. And it's just immaculately performed by both of them. But then also when he meets the bird lady in the park in New York, I love both of those connections so much. It's such a great pairing of an amazing adult, even though I believe the guy in the first one wasn't really an actor, right?
I have no idea.
I thought there was some story out there, and I could just be wrong about this, that he wasn't like the original actor they were going to have play it, but he was someone that they knew or something. I'll have to look into that more deeply now, but love those scenes.
Here's a little tidbit for you. When he pulls out that picture of Buzz's girlfriend and goes, woof, Chris Columbus was like, I can't put a picture of a girl on there because it would make her feel too bad. So he dressed up a boy in a wig and put a dress on him, and that's how that character ended up having to be. Even things like this. John Candy did this as a favor for John Hughes to be in this movie. He actually made less than the pizza delivery boy. Okay. Like when it came to paychecks on it. And yet he steals a show. When he starts talking about how he left his kid at a funeral parlor all day long, you watch Catherine O'Hara because she's losing it. And she's trying so hard because all of his dialogue was made up. Also, I love the theory that he is the devil. I think that plays so incredibly well in this. Do you know this theory by chance, Tucker?
I don't think so. Oh no, yeah. I think I have heard of this before.
So
Go ahead.
she is in St. Louis begging to find a way to get home. And she's at the ticket counter and she goes, I've been from, Chicago to Paris to Dallas to, to Fort Lauderdale to St. Louis. I would sell my soul to get a ride home. And then his character kind of pops up in the background and then offers her a way home by giving her this ride like in the back of a truck. And then he had previously worn a devil costume in another John Hughes movie in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And so there's this weird like fan theory out there that he is the devil. And I love that. I love that idea.
There's another part of Home Alone though that always sticks in my head, and it's when the cop is talking on his phone and a piece of donut falls on the phone and doesn't fall off.
Yeah. That whole
as a kid, I would always it would stare to be like, just get it off the phone. Just get it off the phone. I think that's such an amazing moment that obviously must have just sort of happened. And they said, we have to keep that in.
The script writing in that scene is brilliant because it's two cops who are who are like, not my department, and then keep pushing Catherine O'Hara back and forth. And it's just like the way the actor who has the donut rattles off has a child been involved in an accident involving broken limbs, blah, 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 lots of blood. And she goes, no, I don't know. And then he just rattles off the next part of his, like the script as a cop you're supposed to say. It's brilliantly written. So good. And then of course the idea is that John Hughes wrote this movie in a weekend. He's like, oh yeah, I can do that. And he wrote it specifically for Macaulay Culkin. Yeah. And he's like, he cranked the thing out in a weekend. And now it's one of the biggest holiday franchises of all time. Just amazing.
Wow.
Sunday the 20th, I picked two really new movies called The Christmas Chronicles. It's The Christmas Chronicles and The Christmas Chronicles 2. The reason I include these, I love Kurt Russell, and he plays Santa Claus. He plays this kind of grizzled, like, mountain man Santa Claus in both of these. And in Christmas Chronicles 2, Goldie Hawn, his real-life partner of many years, plays Mrs. Claus. Damn!
If his Santa Claus went to battle with Tim Allen's Santa Claus, who would win?
Oh, the Kurt Russell Santa Claus, without a doubt. Even
though Tim Allen's got like the elf squad behind him.
Yep. I mean, this Santa Claus can throw a punch, and like this Santa Claus rocks out. Like it's got a Adventures in Babysitting like rock and roll number that's a part of this. Like it's good. It's good stuff. It is definitely 21st century. I'll feed you some Christmas stuff. Like these are Netflix original films, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you're looking for a Christmas movie you haven't seen yet and you don't want to delve into Hallmark territory, this is well worth your time. On the 21st, another Muppet movie is included, The Muppet Family Christmas. This you can watch on YouTube. You can pick up a DVD of it, but the DVD actually has less content than the YouTube version does because of rights. They couldn't include some songs on the DVD, but luckily people ripped, an actual like a VHS taped off of television copy from the late 80s. In this, the Muppet gang piles into a truck and they decide they're going to go to Ma Bear, Fozzie's mom's farmhouse for Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. It's a great idea. Ma Bear had been planning on going surfing in Maui, and so it's a surprise when all of these people show up at her house. And she had actually rented out the farmhouse to Doc from Fraggle Rock. So they end up having to spend a holiday there. While they're there, guess who comes caroling? The entire gang from Sesame Street. So Sesame Street, those people all hop into the house. They meet with the Fraggles. There's a horrible blizzard, and Miss Piggy gets caught out in the blizzard. There are one of the greatest carol medleys of all time. There's a funny joke about the Swedish chef trying to cook Big Bird instead of a turkey. This movie is awesome. And I remember this is the moment when I realized, like, oh, my family doesn't love the things I love. I was insistent that we had to be home by 7:00 on Christmas so I could watch this special. And my parents were like, no, we're at grandma's and everything like that. And I'm like, I need to go home. And so one of my cousins who was going to like another Christmas event dropped me off at home, and I sat in our living room all by myself and I watched this special when it first aired. And then I watched it all by myself on subsequent airings because it is so good. It's so perfect. But I realized like my parents don't care about this. They don't. My sister isn't a Muppet fanatic like I am. This is
This is
something
such
that gets to be special for me.
This is such a sign of how different our childhoods were. Because if I had been at my grandparents' house on Christmas throwing a fit because I need to be home at 7 to watch something, my parents would not have let me like go with a cousin and just get dropped off. They would have been like, no, you're here with your family and this is what you're doing. Like I would have been forced to stay and I would have been punished severely for having thrown that kind of a hissy. I think that's so funny.
I think even as a young kid, my parents knew that I didn't meld well with my dad's side of the family. These are all like men who carry giant buck knives with them. They watch sports. They take a nap after dinner. They would never lift a hand to help in the like kitchen. And I just didn't fit in, right? Like I wasn't a part of that countrified thing. And here's the irony. This would have been at my grandmother's house, which is essentially the equivalent of like Fozzie's mom's house. I needed to leave the actual Christmas special I was living to go watch a Christmas special on TV because the Muppets were in it. It's so good. It's so good. And if you've got young people in your house, it's a great way to get it going. There's also this running gag of like, I don't know if at one point Winnebagos were famous for like being able to start on a whim, but there's this running gag of like, it's cold enough out there to freeze your Winnebago. And they say it like 6 or 7 times. It's perfect. And there's a Jim Henson moment in this that still to this day will bring a tear to my eye that is so damn good. This movie is so fantastic. And since it's a television special, I think it's only like 45 minutes long. So it's well worth your time.
Nice.
On Tuesday, the 22nd, The Family Stone. This was a tough one for me to put on this list, if I'm going to be honest. This movie came out. Well, it must have come out the Christmas of 2004. And I can tell you, I know that because my dad died in 2003. And trust me, this is going somewhere. So my dad dies April of 2003. And my dad died in April of 2003. And so this movie came out Christmas 2003. And it was this lighthearted, like families getting together for Christmas and what's going to happen. Oh no, we all have different opinions, blah, blah, blah. And I thought it looked like this delightful holiday romp. So I told my family, listen, for Christmas this year, since it's the first one without dad, why don't we go to a movie? Why don't we go to a lighthearted, funny movie? Wouldn't that be great? They're like, that's a wonderful idea. The people who cut this trailer are full of shit. If you go and watch a trailer, go and watch that goddamn trailer and then watch the movie and tell me if they got that right. Because this movie is a heavy dramedy. It's, the light and fluffy wrapping on this is that Sarah Jessica Parker is dating one of the sons and she is, joining in on this holiday tradition with his family, and the other adult children, like with Rachel McAdams, don't like her and they give her a hard time, and she one
Claire
of the
Danes
other brothers,
Claire Danes just fell out of a bus. I'm watching it.
So what they don't tell you in this is Diane Keaton is dying from cancer, and this is her last Christmas. She's kept it as a secret, and Coach Hayden Fox goes off to smoke dope with one of his guys. Is like, I don't know. I loved your mother my whole life. I don't know what I'm going to do without her. I don't know what Christmas would be like without your mother here. And I was like, God damn it. I remember my sister leaning over and being like, great choice, JJ. Great choice. Halfway through the movie. But I decided to include it on here because there is something in there about accepting other people from outside of your direct circle who are a part of your Christmas celebrations. And sometimes it's, this year, Christmas is going to look different for a lot of people. It's going to feel a lot different. And we need to realize that there are other people out there and they have different traditions. And sometimes you need to embrace that. And I always wanted a Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving type painting for my Thanksgiving, but that's not the way it is. And some of my best memories are because things didn't go as planned like that. So I highly, 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 highly recommend. So the Family Stone is an interesting one, and I'm glad I included it on my list so that you can be as depressed as I am during the holidays. The 23rd White Christmas. White Christmas, probably, easily up there with It's a Wonderful Life as the most iconic Christmas movie of all time. Bing Crosby's in it. It's a fine movie. I had to include it on this list or people were going to go ballistic. Quite frankly, it's not my favorite Christmas movie of all time. But on the 23rd, if you're still wrapping presents, if you have last minute to do things, if you're doing some cooking beforehand, this is a great movie to have on in the background. It's just a nice movie.
Just to bring something up here, though, JJ, on your list, you do say written that you've owned this on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, digital download, and 4K, and you watch it on TV every year. And you're saying you think it's just okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing I think that there's maybe only 4 movies I've owned in all of those formats. And White Christmas is one of them because it is the Christmas gift that people would give me every single year. They'd be like, Ginger loves movies. I'm going to give him White Christmas.
See, I would be afraid to give it to you because it's so iconic. I know you're going to have it. I just assumed that maybe you would have had it out of posterity, right? Like, I love movies. I should therefore have a copy of this.
And I mean, It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas are movies I can watch once a year, and that's it. So this will be my annual viewing of White Christmas on the 23rd. But take something like Elf. I could watch Elf 5 times during the month of December and enjoy it every single time. But White Christmas and It's a Wonderful Life and a lot of the older ones are much harder for me to palate. And it's not because it's an older style of filmmaking or black and white. It's just a different style of filmmaking. And the things that were funny back then and the pratfalls are not as funny to me today.
You wouldn't watch these in May.
No, God, no. Christmas in July, maybe, like if it's for charity, but that's about it. Christmas Eve, I got a heavy, heavy push here. As Tucker mentioned earlier, the best adaptation of all time when it comes to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is The Muppet Christmas Carol.
And by orders of magnitude, nothing else comes close, and nothing will probably ever come close.
In fact, I think that, at one point you should just stop trying. And don't get me wrong, there are other great adaptations of this. The one with Patrick Stewart is really good. George C. Scott. But this one nails it in a lot of ways. Number one, Dickens is pretty funny. And the humor of Dickens doesn't come out in a lot of the other ones. It certainly does in this because it's the Muppets. It's shot incredibly well. The characters that they choose and the way they, kind of bring them together is wonderful. The set is amazing. The music, again, by Paul Williams, is so dang good. It's a perfect adaptation. And it's partially driven by the fact that Michael Caine approaches this role not as if he's in a Muppet movie. He approaches this role as if he was doing like a staged version of A Christmas Carol, and he was playing Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yep.
And the fact that he doesn't wink to the audience at any time, you take like a Muppet Treasure Island, Tim Curry definitely winks at the audience when he's playing Long John Silver. Michael Caine never does that. He, like the way he looks at Kermit with such disdain, the way is how Scrooge would look at his bookkeeper, Bob Cratchit.
Right.
Miss Piggy is wonderful in this, and she's not in that much of this movie. Like, she's in very sparsely, but they use her brilliantly every time she's on there. The Ghost of Christmas Past, being that ethereal child, the Ghost of Christmas Present. In fact, I just told my wife last night, that's how I want to die, is the same way as the Ghost of Christmas Present, by, laughing and saying, "Go forth and know him better, man." That's how I want to die. And then turn into like sparkly Christmas lights. So if we can arrange that'd be great.
This movie is not, I mean, it's great for everything you said. Plus, this was like a time before family movies, especially ones that are really aimed at kids liking them. This is before they were filled constantly with pop culture references, right?
Yeah. And fart jokes and
right. And let's make sure that latest Nicki Minaj song is in here, sort of ironically, right? Like it not only does Michael Caine take the source material seriously, the Muppets take the source material seriously. And like the Muppet characters that are cast in the different roles, it's perfect. It's perfect casting. And I love the fact that I know you had said that in a previous podcast, I think. Initially, they had intended that Gonzo would actually be the Ghost of Christmas future, Ghost of Christmas yet to come. And I'm so glad that he's not, because the variations of the ghosts, we get these new Muppet characters that sort of transcend or that take those roles seriously and are really beautiful interpretations of them.
If the listener out there is going to watch this movie, there's a couple different ways you can watch it. And just like the Muppet Family Christmas, if you can watch I think it's the DVD version, the original DVD version before Disney bought it, there's a song that got cut.
What?
Yeah, that you can still see in one of these versions called "The Love Is Gone," and it's the song that is sung by Clara, which is younger Scrooge's like to be like betrothed, and she sings this beautiful song that Scrooge then sings like a refrain of at the very end of the movie, was like "The love we found," and it's a weird cut because it's Clara talking about like, we'll never get married, I think you loved me once, and then this weird shot of Michael Caine, and then Gonzo and Rizzo are crying, and they're crying because she's sung this beautiful song about leaving him and like, you know, how there was love there once and it, you know, it's left. It's an odd cut. I watched it on Disney Plus last night, and they've got the one where they've exercised the song out of there. And it's a shame. So if you can find the version that has the song still intact, I think it's much better. I don't understand why they cut it or why it's so hard to find that version. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't even think of why they would decide to cut that. Last thing I'll say about the movie too is Statler and Waldorf as his dead business partner.
Mm-hmm.
Perfection.
I challenge the person the next time they view it, in the sequence with Christmas Present when they go out into the streets and they're singing the song Thankful Heart. Right when they get into the streets, there's a little choir of babies and they're all dressed up that are singing, and one of the babies hits another one in the face, and you can see it. So you're going to look down in the left-hand part of the screen. Honest to God, it makes me pee my pants a little bit. It's a throwaway thing. It's not even the thing you're supposed to be focusing on, but like he hits the baby and they do this thing. Like if you're a Muppeteer where your hands are in like in the puppet, but if you crinkle them back, it kind of pulls the nose and the lips in. Like it is so freaking funny. And so he's got that thing, and then he starts hitting the other baby and he starts headbutting him. It is so flippin' funny. And it's just this little throwaway moment, and it's a great example of how awesome the Muppets are and the detail they take for it. So good.
I just watched it. Pretty fantastic.
It's good, isn't it?
It's on accident, right? He hits him with the bell on accident.
Yep.
And then no one really seems to. Oh, he gets up right away and gets mad. Okay. The faces on these guys are pretty great.
The last movie on and this is Christmas Eve, mind you. The last movie on Christmas Eve is a movie that was here and gone and does not get the acclaim it should, because it is so flipping good. Now, it's an animated movie, so right away you think, oh, it's made for kids. This is a movie where I think kids can get enjoyment, but it clearly has enough stuff for adults that you're going to enjoy it as well. It's called Arthur Christmas. It's the story of Santa Claus's son, Arthur. Arthur has an older brother named Steve, who's next in line to be Santa, voiced by Hugh Laurie, mind you, Steve. Steve has revolutionized the technology of the North Pole. They don't use a sleigh anymore. They use this like spaceship type thing called the S1. And really, Santa has just become a figurehead. He delivers one gift, and then the rest of it's done by elves, and it's all, you know, like they've all got iPads and stuff like that. It's very technological. Tucker, you would like it because in the Santa Claus, you like the Elf Liberation Squad so much.
Okay.
So Arthur is the accident-prone, younger brother who loves Christmas and thinks his dad is the most amazing person on the planet. His dad is Santa Claus. Oh my God, that's amazing. And he works in the letter department, and he reads the letters from the kids and then writes them back and lets them know that, like, don't worry, Santa's real. And he just thinks it's amazing. the movie starts at the end of Christmas Eve. Santa has delivered, or I guess the elves and Santa have delivered all of these gifts. This is supposed to be Santa's last run, and then he's going to turn it over to Steve. He decides he's not going to turn it over to Steve. He'll just be excited for next Christmas. So now Steve, who's so angry that, he's not going to become the next Santa Claus, he kind of storms off. You meet Grandpa Claus, who is Santa Claus's dad, who's back, he's back from like the 1920s, and he used, the actual sleigh and everything like this. Well, one kid got missed. A gift fell out off this automation, and one toy did not get delivered. And so Arthur, because he believes so much in Christmas, decides he and Grand Santa are going to go out and deliver this last toy. And of course, nothing goes the way that they want. One little tiny elf from the wrapping department ends up in the sleigh with them. They take the sleigh out there, and at one point it becomes a rescue mission. This movie has got so much heart, and it's absolutely hilarious. They throw in all of these just amazing little like side jokes. Mrs. Claus is really the one who knows what's going on in the North Pole, and she's got everything together. Arthur Christmas is the holiday film that we were looking for in the 2010s, and it was delivered, but nobody went out to go see it. It's got dry British humor. If you're a fan of Monty Python, this has got a lot of Monty Python feel to it. Like if Monty Python made like a Christmas movie, that would be included with this. The voice work is out of this world. It's the character designs are great. It is a very, very, very good Christmas movie. I've played it for a couple of people who've enjoyed Christmas at our home over the years, and they all said the same thing. I didn't even know that this movie existed. This is great. I loved it. So, and it's perfect because it all takes place in the, essentially to sunrise on Christmas Day, from Christmas Eve to sunrise on Christmas Day. So that's why I include it on Christmas Eve on the 24th. So I highly recommend taking a gander at Arthur Christmas. And last but not least, Christmas Day. I'm not going to tell you what to watch. You can watch one of these that you loved from the rest of the month. You can tell me, oh, I can't believe you didn't include Christmas with the Cranks, or whatever Christmas movie you love I didn't say on there, because there's a lot of holiday films out there, and there are some that are really good that just I couldn't find a good place for it. Like Krampus is a horror comedy that right. I didn't find space for. The Holiday is another one. The Preacher's Wife. I mean, there's a lot of really great Christmas movies out there that I couldn't find space. And of course, there's television specials and. So here's I think the one omission that I'd like to hear about why it's not on the list is The Nightmare Before Christmas. Ah, okay.
That is such a powerful movie, and we've talked about it before, how it's both appropriate for both Halloween and Christmas, but it still feels more like a Christmas movie to me because of the redemption arc, because Christmas is more of the focus.
And I think that the bulk of it takes place leading up to Christmas too. The movie starts on Halloween, but the rest is about the lead up to Christmas. Right. I didn't include it on this list for.
Is it a Thanksgiving
movie? It could have been. It could have been.
Maybe it's a Thanksgiving watch.
Yeah,
right between. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Do you think, like A Nightmare Before Christmas? Would have fit in like with that Die Hard and Scrooge, like right around there, because it's got kind of this scary bend to it. It's got a great adaptation by Santa. I like the movie a lot. I just happened to watch it on Halloween, so I didn't feel the need to include it on here.
I think to me it's a Christmas Eve movie. I think Christmas Eve is the day I would watch A Nightmare Before Christmas. Muppet Christmas Carol is something I would probably myself watch on Christmas. But because there's so much of, Christmas morning is such a great moment in the movie. So watching a Christmas morning would be pretty great too. But I also think trying to make way for the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah. Life Day, right? Got to get that included on there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, JJ, I think this is a fantastic list, and I thank you for doing the hard scientific work to make this list a reality.
It was, I mean, I spent a lot of hours putting this thing together and trying to balance it out nicely and neatly and figuring out reasons that, you know, if someone overlooked a movie, that why they should watch it. And I think that there's some really good stuff here. And of course, you can always go to like our Facebook page, JJ Meets World on Facebook, and tell us why I missed a movie or why I should omit something and swap it out. I'd love to know the ones that you think belong on this list.
There's nothing on this list I would not watch.
Really? That's good. I feel like I did a good job then.
You did a very good job, JJ. Good job, JJ.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, and that being said, I'm going to be watching a lot of other stuff over the Christmas season as well. So I got to get to it. In fact, I've got a viewing this evening of a bunch of stuff that I need to get going. So thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you found it to be worthwhile. And if you need the full list, I do have the full list at kfgo.com. I wrote a blog for my day job about this. So you can go to kfgo.com and click on the opinion section, go down to JJ's Place, and everything is listed out. And I've got the trailers for everything there too. So I hope you enjoy.
Link to it in the show description.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that?
We'll link to it in the show description for sure. Check out the podcast show description.
See, look at that. That's why I keep Tucker around here. He's the elf to my Santa. Or I guess he's the Anna Faris to my fat Ryan Reynolds from Just Friends.
I think I'm the Mrs. Claus to your Santa Claus.
Oh, I like that. And if you want to watch a really messed up thing about Mrs. Claus, seek out David Showalter, Michael Ian Black, and Michael Showalter, or David Wayne and Michael Showalter's Christmas short from Stella, because that thing is messed up.
You need to make a new list that is adults only.
Oh yeah, really, and there should be, because there's plenty of stuff that's meant only for adults during the holiday season. So we'll see if we can get that put together too. But for this, happy holidays, and we'll be talking again soon, folks. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. I've always thought that if you leave all those cookies out for Santa, like, first of all, I mean, he must have like type 6 diabetes. But at one point, do you think he's just like, you know what? How about like a meatball?